What is going on, YouTube? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards. Here to talk a little NBA basketball today. So what I wanted to do was just go through a list of off-season targets, specifically players that are not in the playoffs and or play-in games. So I just looked at all the teams that are completely eliminated, completely done, and picked out a few key players that I'm not saying I'm running out and buying these guys now by any means, but I'm going to be tracking their prices to see if there's a point where they might get a little spicy, if you will. So before we dive in, all the YouTube nonsense down below, like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget the eBay affiliate link if you are planning on making any purchases for anything. Go ahead and click that eBay affiliate link in the description below. And also the Market Movers affiliate link. We will be using Market Movers a bunch today. So if you want to check out that product along with the 20% off coupon, that is listed in the description down below as well. With all that being said, let's dive in. So I have 7 players I am interested in keeping track of prices on for non-playoff teams, with a bonus 2 that are technically on playoff teams, but I believe they are going to be very quickly eliminated. We will find out. They are from the same team, so we'll get to them last because they don't necessarily count, but I have a feeling they will be joining their off-season brethren fairly quickly. I am recording this prior to any play-in games being played. This is being recorded Monday night to go up either Wednesday or Thursday. So just if anything wild or crazy happened in the first 2 games of the play-ins, I don't know about it yet. So just putting that out there. All these charts are ran back 30 days for really no particular reason, just to kind of give a little bit of data. And for the purposes of this, I'm continuing to use PSA 10 base Prism, just because it's the most widely available card still. But I am not so much focused on the individual cards here. I am just using this as an example for these players. In some cases, it would probably make sense to go with the Prism. In some cases, maybe it makes more sense to go with Select or Optic or whatever. Like I said, I'm not necessarily too hung up on the individual cards we're going to be talking about. This is more about the players themselves. And when prices reach certain points, I would be interested in diving into any one of their particular cards. In some cases, it would be base Prism because we're going to talk about guys prior to the 2018 class. Remember, anyone prior to 2018, their base Prism is still the go-to for just a base general rookie because the population counts on those are fairly low. And for the express purposes of this, other than one guy, maybe 2, I am taking the approach of looking to buy these players as they dip down in the early days of the offseason and then selling them before next season starts. So the theory is, now we're going to test this theory because, as we all know, the current card market is in definitely a pullback right now, that these prices will bottom out at some point and begin to creep back up again prior to next season starting. So the goal here is to buy these players low and then sell them in, let's call it September, October, assuming the season starts around Halloween like it used to. So early October, late September would be the sell point for most of this stuff. Maybe if someone doesn't get a run up in prices, then I would hold into the season. But ideally, most of these players I would want to move off of, with the exception of a couple. And we'll talk about those specifically. So first up, and these are in no particular order. I will say there is one particular player that I like, 2 particular players that I like more than anyone else on the list. But these are in no particular order. But we will start with both land and sex. Collin Sexton and Darius Garland. I have long put land before the sex. I believe Garland is the much better actual NBA player, and Collin Sexton is just the numbers guy. I think both have strong appeal. Garland's stuff, at least his PSA 10 Prism, is pretty cheap. It's down to $66 right now, and I can see that continuing to slide down. So he is a fairly low risk investment in my view. You know, watch his prices, let it keep going. We'll see what it gets down to. Wow, within the last 30 days, it was down to about $57. We'll see if it gets sub 50. And then once again, you could apply this out to any of his various other cards if you wanted to. Silvers if you wanted to go higher end. Optics, selects, pick your poison. But yeah, his base Prism PSA 10 is definitely on my radar. And once again, I am not super hung up on base Prism for the purposes of this because I am not looking to hold it long term. This is a quick and simple hold it for a few months and then sell it at the beginning of the season. Once again, assuming there's some definite risk here because we are all assuming that the card market returns to its normal cyclical cycles and eventually stops going down, which obviously at some point it will. But the fact of the matter is we don't know where the bottom is quite yet. Sexton, exact same thing. I could just see him getting trendy early in the preseason, or even if he comes out and has a couple big games like he did this past season and then spiking his prices. I am not the biggest Collin Sexton fan for the long term. The kid can score, absolutely. I don't know that he actually makes a team better. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if there is a chance that the Cavs actually trade him, which would also be good for card prices. At some point in time, probably after the NBA playoffs, I will probably do a video specifically about which teams have cap space and could potentially be an Atlanta Hawks 2.0 situation where there were certain teams that made a bunch of moves which caused existing stars prices to spike. See Trae Young. And see if there is anyone that falls into that category for this upcoming season, and maybe we could get ahead of that. So Sexton's the other one. His PSA 10 Prism right now is floating around $100. I have a feeling this is going to continue to go down. But at some point in time, like I said, I don't know what the exact number is. It's going to be a matter of watching the charts and graphs and see where it begins to level off and then decide if that's a price point that I want to buy in at. At $100, I don't think I'm ready to jump in yet, but I will be keeping my eye on it. Moving right along. This is a more interesting one. Pascal Siakam. His stuff's gotten real cheap. His PSA 10 Prism, which is out of the 2016 set, only popped 422. So there is not a ton of these. Is down to $100. I am intrigued at sub $100 on Siakam. He had some really big games prior to not this season, but the season before. And then, the bubble thing happened. He played like crap. He had on and off again this season, did have some strong games to close. But I am just intrigued by his overall talent. It's a low pop card, at least his base Prism. And it's not very high risk at sub $100. You got to remember, like, to grade a card now is going to cost probably $30 to $50 by itself. We don't know what PSA's more normal grading prices are going to be at, but I have to imagine you're not getting a card graded by them for less than $30. So to me, there's some base level value in a guy that I think has a heartbeat. And I do really like Siakam as a player. Maybe he gets traded. I doubt it. I think they're going to want to run that team back and see what they can build out. Maybe pick up a couple of free agents or whatever, but I don't see them necessarily blowing that team up. Maybe they do a sign and trade with Lowry or something. But I think they want to run it back with Van Vliet and Gary Trent and Siakam and Boucher and kind of just see what happens with that team. But they're an intriguing team for next year. Nick Nurse is a very good coach. And then they had the whole weirdness this year of having to play in Tampa. So next year they'll be back in Toronto. It just kind of reset the season for them. So I do like Siakam as a potential buy low candidate, especially with that low of a pop and that low of a price point. Moving right along. Let's talk Zion. I am not necessarily a big buyer on Zion, but there's probably going to be a number where I would get interested. A lot of this is me so much watching his prices just because I'm very curious where the market bottoms out on him. He is currently down 25% over the last 30 days, sitting at a little over $500. And I could easily see that the last couple of days, it dipped down almost right at 500. It hasn't dropped below 500 yet, but I would have to imagine it gets there. I think this goes sub 500, maybe even 450. I asked for predictions in a video a couple days ago. Most people were in that $450 to $500 range. I tend to agree with them. I think it gets down to around 450 at some point in time. One, just the general market cooling off. Two, the population count continuing to increase. And three, money that is in the NBA market shifting to guys that are actually playing in the playoffs. Now, with Zion specifically, if you are looking to buy on Zion, base Prism is not where you want to put your money. Maybe you could for a quick flip, assuming that it's going to go back up again. But if you actually want to buy Zion on the dip to buy and hold, you should be looking at his Select, Optic Hollow, Select Premier, that sort of stuff. Prism Color. And I'll probably do like a Zion, buying the dip video or something at some point in time once prices kind of level out on him and we could get a better idea on that. But I am at least mildly interested to see where he bottoms out at. I would not personally buy his base Prism unless it got pretty cheap, but I would have my eyes on maybe like a Select Premier if I think that dropped too low. That would be something that I might be looking to jump on as, once again, a quick flip. I want to kind of move in and out of Zion. I don't want to be parked in Zion, if that makes sense. I still have my injury concerns with him. Next on the list, Cat. Karl Anthony Towns, 2015 Prism base, about 1,200 of these on the population report, not too obscene. Down 20% the last 30. Don't necessarily care too much about that, but currently sitting at 200 and about, we'll call it $25. I could see this getting sub 200. I am intrigued by him as a run-up candidate for the start of next season. I could see him getting buzzy. You have him and D'Angelo Russell and the Ant-Man and whatever other moves that they may make in the offseason. I don't remember what their cap situation is off the top of my head. They have Malik Beasley. The team has not played that great, but that team has just not been able to get anything at all going consistency between COVID and injuries and a bunch of other just shenanigans. That team has had zero rhythm whatsoever. I have always really liked Karl Anthony Towns as a player. I feel like he's kind of been forgotten about a little bit. And I think if his stuff got cheap enough that you could buy it and just sit on it and wait for a trade. I have to imagine I think he rides it out to start this season. But if this season doesn't go well and it's a mess, I have to imagine he tries to force his way out. And if I'm the Timberwolves, you would probably take that opportunity to move him and get a haul. He's still pretty young. I think he's ridiculously talented and puts up monster numbers. I can see this being a quick flip situation, but I also could see some appeal to setting some to the side, forgetting about it, and for an eventual trade situation that could arise a la Anthony Davis, where he semi-forces his way out of a town to maybe then team up with another superstar or something. I would love to see him like on Dallas or something, teamed up with Luka. That's a pipe dream, but you never know. So, Cat, moving on. De'Aaron Fox. Extremely talented, stuck on the Kings. I would love for them to trade him. They probably won't. His PSA 10s pop about 2,000. This is 2017 class, so a little bit more manageable. Currently down 15% over the last 30 to 175. I would like to personally see this one get lower. But once again, on my radar, always trendy, always popular, always gets a lot of hobby buzz. Gary V's a big fan of him, which doesn't hurt. You're always a Gary V tweet away from his prices spiking. But yeah, De'Aaron Fox comes up next on the list for fairly obvious reasons. This isn't like, not like I'm picking dark horse deep dive guys, but the point of this is that these guys, assuming the market is remotely normal, should see rises before next season starts. The key is where do they bottom out at? Moving right along, The last one on the main list before we get to the two honorable mentions, and also my personal favorite, and the one guy that I would actually consider possibly holding past the start of the season. But I do feel like you can move in and out of him because the team's not going to be very good again. So you could potentially sell him prior to the season started and then pick him back up again later in the season for cheaper. And that is one Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I am a huge fan of SGA. He's one of my favorite young players in the league. And I think there's going to be a very good buying opportunity on his stuff. Already over the last 30, he's down about 15%. His PSA is 10, is down to about 170. And I could see this continuing to go down a little bit. I don't think this goes down much more. Keep in mind, he's basically been out for about a month with a foot injury, and they basically told him to stay away from the team because they were tanking, and his prices have hardly moved at all. So his season's been over for a while, and he really didn't have a monster dip. So maybe it goes down a little bit, but this could subscribe to my theory that once these guys stop playing, that their prices really don't go down that much anymore. They just kind of sit. And then eventually start creeping back up as money moves into people buying those off-season dips in the anticipation for the run-up of the next season. So SGA is last on the main list, and by far my favorite. Let's get to the two honorable mentions real quick. They're both Celtics, who I know are in the plan, but with Jayson Brown being done, I think they're toast. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually just don't make it out of the play-in games. And they don't even actually make the real playoffs. So they could be joining this list by the end of the week officially. First up, and it's the main one, that's Jayson Tatum. His stuff has really tanked the last few days. His PSA 10 Prism is down to $400 a couple auctions. An auction ended at $400 at midnight last night at time of recording. Here's a 465, another 400, a 466, a 416, a 370 for an auction. Once again, I keep saying it, follow auction values. Now, Pop 5,000, it is getting up there, but it's still not super huge compared to a lot of the more modern stuff in 18 and 19. So it's still manageable, but once again, Tatum is one that I would apply across the board. I would look at his select, I would look at his optic, I would look at his prism, any different color variations, anything like that you can get your hands on. I am 100% on board buying a Tatum dip. He would be my favorite player on this list if he was already out of, in the air quotes, playoffs. He is one that I am definitely keeping my eye on, assuming they get eliminated this week. Even if they don't, if they actually make the real playoffs, they're going to have to play the 76ers or the Nets. I think they get smashed regardless of who they match up against. So he's probably going to get a quick exit no matter what. And if his prices continue to trend down, I will be buying once I think it reaches somewhere along whatever the bottom is. I think the Celtics could potentially try to revamp for the start of next season, whether that's a Marcus Smart trade. I don't think they'd be able to do anything with Kemba Walker's contract, but that team will shake things up. There's no way they're going to run this back. This season's been a massive disappointment, especially when you have two players as talented as Tatum and Brown. And speaking of, Jaylen Brown is the second one from the same team. Once again, his 2016 Prism base, only 600 on the PSA 10 Pop report. He came out on fire this year, and he just had a monster run early in the season. His prices really spiked. They've obviously come way back like everything else, and now that they're out, he's dropped 26%, 28%. The last 30, down $100 from $350 to $250. Once again, I will closely monitor this. If this keeps going down, I would definitely be a buyer on Brown as well. He showed me earlier this year that he is legit good. I really like both the Celtics star players and would be very happy to buy either one of them on a dip. And I think it would be very easy for them to get a run up in prices prior to next season. Or if the team does some off-season shakeups that make a bunch of newsy and notes and Woj bombs and Shams bombs and all that stuff that could potentially spike prices for them. We will see what Danny Ainge can pull off in this upcoming off-season. So that is all I have for you guys and girls today. Of the ones listed, who's your favorite? Give me your favorite 2 from the ones that I listed. And then is there someone that you're like, how the hell did you not include this guy? Now, obviously, there's a ton of players that are not on this list. I tried to limit it. It's to, I don't want to say fairly obvious, but names that have a decent chance of rising before next season starts. That's the key. Sure, you could go for your pet project, Kevin Porter Jr. or Darius Baisley or whoever you want, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, someone like that. But I wanted more established players. If prices are going to crash on these guys, I'm going to go after the guys that have legit upside like a Tatum versus chasing guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker or KPJ. That's just my opinion. Now, if you're just starting out and you're on a budget, maybe that's the tier of players that you go for, those younger upside guys. The problem with them is a lot of things can change in the offseason that can affect their value. You know, Lonzo Ball could be gone, which could really help Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or they could re-sign him into some massive contract, and now all of a sudden he's in the same situation that he was in now, you know, 6-man or gets some playing time, whatever. There's a lot of things that could affect the value of that card. Jayson Tatum, I am fairly confident that wherever he bottoms out at prior to next season, his prices are going to go back up again. It's just a matter of really watching these guys' prices and see where the floor is. So let me know who's your favorite from this list, who's your favorite that I did not include. Try to keep it like mid-level star / fringe all-star level player versus just, you know, someone completely out of the woodwork like a, you know, Isaac Okoro or something like that. I did not include any of this year's rookie class. I'm not high on pretty much most of them, and there's not a lot of graded stuff back yet. And I think a lot of those players haven't seen their floor pricing yet. So I try to stick with established players for the purposes of this list. But that's all I have for you guys and girls today. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to check out the eBay affiliate link. If you want to check out Market Movers, the link to that is down below. That's where all these charts and graphs come from. We will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.